6 months after being abandoned by my fiancé who ran away with all our money, I was sitting as the CEO of a multi-million-dollar fintech when he walked in asking for a job, having no idea he was speaking to the very woman he once tried to ruin. I saw Raphael walking into my CEO office with wobbling legs and a face pale as the finest quality Japanese rice paper, his hands trembling uncontrollably like autumn leaves being whipped by a merciless gale, while desperately clutching a worn and faded leather folder that I immediately recognized as the one I'd given him as a gift on our third dating anniversary, on a sunny spring afternoon when we still believed love was eternal and indestructible as the mountains we saw from our window. "Clara, please. I can explain everything. It's not what you're thinking. There's an explanation for all of this that's happening," he begged with a hoarse and broken voice of absolute despair that echoed off the tempered glass walls of my office like a condemned man's funeral lament. I just smiled with the glacial and calculated calm of someone who had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times in vengeful dreams and recurring nightmares, slowly and methodically twirling the limited edition Mont Blanc pen between my perfectly manicured blood-red nails purposely chosen to symbolize the revenge being realized, while holding with my other firm and unwavering hand the termination contract already signed by me in definitive black ink that would definitively, irrevocably, and irreversibly end any residual hope he still nurtured in the depths of his traitorous heart. Before we continue this extraordinary story of poetic revenge, monumental overcoming and rebirth from the ashes of destruction, please subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any episode of this saga of divine justice, and tell us where you're listening from in the comments below, as we love knowing where our loyal listeners come from. My full true name registered in the county clerk's office is Clara Beatriz Mendonça. I'm 42 years intensely lived between complex financial spreadsheets that challenge the comprehension of mere mortals, revolutionary blockchain algorithms that promise to transform the antiquated global financial system, and monumental entrepreneurial dreams that seemed absolutely impossible, unreachable, and utopian until that fateful, devastating, and paradoxically liberating moment when I discovered in the worst humanly possible, imaginable, and conceivable way that the man I planned to marry in 6 months in a luxurious ceremony, already partially organized with non-refundable deposits paid, had methodically, calculatingly, premeditatedly, and cruelly emptied our joint business account of $75,000 painstakingly saved cent by cent during years of conscious deprivations, purposely and sadistically leaving only 67 cents as a morbid, sadistic, and humiliating bad taste joke that would be his farewell signature, and cowardly fled like a common thief in the silent and complicit dawn with Vanessa Cristina Santos, the artificially bleached blonde, excessively enhanced and vulgar receptionist from the century-old traditional bank where he worked as senior accounts manager for 15 consecutive years of apparent professional dedication. Today, after an epic journey of overcoming and rebirth, I am founder and majority CEO with 85% of shares of a revolutionary, disruptive, and truly transformative fintech worth currently $10 million in the competitive and ruthless American financial technology market, but on that fateful, devastating, and unforgettable March 23rd, when I discovered the financial and emotional blow that would shake the foundations of my existence and change my life irreversibly forever. I was just a systems analyst unemployed for 3 agonizing months who had just invested absolutely all savings accumulated during a lifetime of hard work, extreme sacrifices that few would understand, and conscious deprivations that hurt the soul in a shared dream that painfully, brutally, and cruelly revealed itself to be completely one-sided, illusory, and an elaborate lie from the beginning. For 5 endless, intense, passionate, and seemingly perfect years in the enchanted and envious eyes of everyone who knew and admired us as an exemplary couple, I was the passionate, dedicated, and devotedly blind fiancé of Rafael Augusto Pereira, a man I genuinely, deeply, and naively believed with every fiber of my being, every cell of my body, and every heartbeat to be my unconditional life partner until death do us part. My safe harbor in the most violent storms life could throw at us. My devoted future husband who would age beside me and loving present father of the 3 children we meticulously planned to have after definitively establishing our own business in the promising, revolutionary, and still unexplored cryptocurrency and blockchain market that he solemnly swore with hand over heart to deeply understand with his 15 years of banking experience patiently accumulated and MBA in digital finance conquered with Herculean sacrifice and sleepless nights from the prestigious Stanford Business School. The extraordinary. Painful as 1,000 daggers simultaneously plunged into the chest, transformative as a caterpillar's metamorphosis into butterfly, and ultimately triumphant as a phoenix, rising from ashes story. I'm going to tell now with Hollywood cinematic richness of visceral, emotional, and sensory details, began on an apparently common, routine, and monotonous Monday morning of gray and melancholic San Francisco rain. When I woke up punctually and automatically at 6 o'clock sharp, as I had religiously done without exception for years of discipline, prepared with maternal care, loving dedication, and meticulous attention, our elaborate, nutritious, and balanced breakfast with homemade artisanal whole wheat bread with 48-hour natural fermentation, organic free-range eggs bought directly from a trusted producer upstate, fresh seasonal fruits selected one by one at the farmer's market, and natural orange juice squeezed fresh with sweet selected pesticide-free oranges, and discovered with growing horror that began as tingling on my neck and transformed into complete paralysis, and devastating emotional paralysis that Raphael had left silently, cowardly and treacherously during the dark, cold, and complicit dawn, taking only 2 black executive rolling suitcases we bought together at Miami duty-free, his latest generation Dell laptop he obsessively used for work that cost $8,000 in installments, the important documents from the biometric digital safe we strategically and paranoically kept hidden in the false bottom of the master bedroom closet behind clothes we never wore, and, most devastatingly, cruelly and sadistically, absolutely all our money meticulously saved cent by painful cent, during 5 years of a relationship I judged to be solid as rock, promising as dawn, and eternal as the stars. The pathetic, cowardly, laconic, and insulting note he left carelessly and disdainfully on the century-old solid mahogany dining table we had bought together with such pride, happiness, and hope, from a renowned and expensive downtown antique dealer after months of research said only in trembling, hurried, almost illegible handwriting, clearly written by someone in a hurry to flee and guilty of betrayal. Clara, forgive me for everything I did and will do, but I urgently and desperately need to follow my own path alone and free. Don't try to find me. It will be completely useless and painful for both of us. Raphael. No additional detailed explanation about the reasons for fleeing. No elaborate and convincing justification for such betrayal. No request for understanding, empathy, or future forgiveness. Just those 19 words, cold, impersonal, and cruel as a razor, that instantly, completely, and irrevocably destroyed 5 years of meticulous and loving joint construction, whispered promises of eternal love on passionate nights, and plans elaborately detailed for the prosperous and happy future we naively and romantically thought was our shared and unquestionable destiny, written in the stars. The initial panic was absolutely overwhelming, like a 100-foot tsunami, paralyzing like coral snake venom, and suffocating as if all available oxygen in the universe had been violently and suddenly sucked from the spacious 1,500-square-foot apartment in the expensive heart of Pacific Heights we rented together with so much monthly financial sacrifice and pride of achievement. With hands trembling uncontrollably like dry sycamore leaves in a devastating tropical storm's strong wind, numb and disobedient fingers barely able to type the 6-digit password that was the date of our first kiss, I grabbed my 3-generation-old iPhone with the screen cracked in an intricate spider web pattern that Raphael always sarcastically and condescendingly criticized, saying I should urgently and immediately replace it with a newer, modern, and presentable model to not suffer embarrassing and humiliating shame in important business meetings with sophisticated investors, and frantically accessed with trembling, sweaty, and disobedient fingers. The bank app we always religiously and obsessively checked together every morning as a sacred ritual. Business joint account balance, where we had methodically, disciplinedly, and hopefully deposited all the initial capital, painstakingly accumulated with blood, sweat, and tears for our revolutionary and disruptive blockchain startup. 67 mocking and humiliating cents, screaming their message of contempt. Joint emergency savings balance we had disciplinedly and paranoically maintained for 3 years for contingencies and catastrophes. Absolute and devastating zero like the vacuum of space. Investment accounts strategically diversified in conservative fixed income for security and aggressive variable for growth. Summarily and definitively closed the previous Friday without my knowledge, authorization, consent, or even basic email notification. My heart was beating so violently, uncontrollably and erratically against my ribs like a panicked, caged bird that I genuinely and sincerely thought I would have a fatal heart attack, stroke, or aneurysm right there, completely alone and helpless on that gray and rainy morning that should have been the promising and productive beginning of another intense week of entrepreneurial work, but became indelibly and traumatically ground zero of the total, complete, and absolute destruction of my entrepreneurial dreams, lovingly cultivated, and my naive and romantic trust in humanity, love and given word. I desperately and frantically called with trembling and disobedient fingers Raphael's premium corporate cell phone that he always religiously and promptly answered on the first ring, regardless of time, situation, or commitment. But the automatic, mechanical, impersonal, and cruel recording from the phone company coldly informed in a robotic and soulless voice that the dialed number no longer existed in the national telecommunications system or had been permanently and irreversibly deactivated by the user. WhatsApp, our main form of daily communication, summarily and cruelly blocked without any explanation, justification, or prior notice. Our years-long conversation with photos, videos, love declarations, and plans simply deleted from the digital universe. Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, TikTok, all possible and imaginable social networks where we shared our life. Profiles completely deleted from digital existence, as if they had never existed, or with my access surgically, definitively, and irrevocably blocked. Joint corporate business email we had created together, specifically and exclusively for the company with our own paid domain. Password strategically and maliciously changed. Recovery impossible as he had changed all security questions and recovery email. It was as if Raphael had methodically, premeditatedly, calculatingly, and surgically erased 5 entire years of shared existence, joint memories, and declared love in a matter of a few silent nighttime hours, transforming our epic love story and business partnership into ethereal and intangible digital smoke, irreversibly dissipating in the infinite and indifferent cyberspace. The devastating, nauseating, and existentially destructive feeling of having been completely erased, deleted like an unwanted file, and discarded like digital trash from the life of someone who solemnly and repeatedly swore to love me eternally until death do us part, was infinitely and indescribably worse than any excruciating physical pain I had ever experienced in my entire 42-year existence, including the emergency surgery for suppurated and perforated appendicitis at 25 that almost killed me with generalized peritonitis and left me 3 weeks in the ICU fighting for life. I tried desperately and uselessly to rationally process with my analytical and logical programmer brain what was happening in that sudden and surreal nightmare, while the silent, empty, and hostile apartment seemed to spin dizzily and nauseatingly around me like a crazed, uncontrolled, and out-of-control carousel in an abandoned amusement park. Raphael, the obsessively meticulous, controlling, and perfectionist man who religiously and compulsively noted every cent spent in complex, detailed and colorful Excel spreadsheets with dynamic graphs, pivot tables, and 5-year projections, who calculated complex compound interest in his head in seconds to impress important clients and potential investors, who voraciously and obsessively read dense, technical, and complex financial reports like other people read airport romance novels, had simply evaporated into San Francisco's thin and polluted air, taking with him 75,000 sweaty dollars that represented not just cold money itself, but 5 years of extreme daily sacrifices that hurt the soul. Endless and exhausting overtime hours until dawn with eyes burning from tiredness, entire weekends working without rest while the world outside lived, lonely extended holidays in the empty office while others traveled to paradise beaches, cold lunchboxes precariously reheated in the company's broken microwave to save every cent, mended clothes, sewn and resewn to not spend on new clothing when store windows seduced me, practically non-existent social life and neglected friendships to obsessively and religiously save every possible cent for our joint business dream, meticulously planned in microscopic detail. We had sold with heart-wrenching pain and tears in our eyes my used but beloved and cherished silver Honda Civic that had faithfully accompanied me for 8 years of stories, antique but valuable furniture full of memories inherited from my deceased maternal grandmother who raised me with love, precious century-old family jewels including the beautiful and historic white gold and diamond engagement ring from my great-grandmother that was an irreplaceable family heirloom passed down through generations, absolutely everything coldly and calculatingly transformed into liquid capital for the company that would be our definitive financial independence, early retirement, and lasting and respected professional legacy for the next generations of the family we plan to build. It was my brother Marcos, brilliant, perceptive, and experienced criminal lawyer with 15 years of specialized and successful practice in complex white-collar crimes, sophisticated corporate fraud, and international money laundering, who discovered through meticulous, professional, and systematic investigation the complete, shocking, nauseating, and devastating truth. 3 endless, agonizing, and sleepless days. Later, through his strategic connections cultivated in the national banking system, cybercrime division, and professional private investigation, discreetly conducted by a retired federal detective. Raphael hadn't fled alone in melancholic and poetic search for existential self-discovery, spiritual enlightenment, or understandable acute midlife crisis, as I still naively and pathetically hoped, with the last microscopic thread of hope that insisted on surviving. He had left premeditatedly, calculatingly, and cruelly with Vanessa Cristina Santos, the artificial bleached blonde with black roots always showing, excessively enhanced to the point of vulgarity, and Botoxed 38-year-old receptionist from the traditional and conservative bank where he had worked for 15 consecutive years, leaving destroyed and devastated behind not just me with my shattered dreams, but also her betrayed and humiliated husband, an honest auto parts businessman. And 3 innocent and confused teenage school-aged children who emotionally and psychologically depended on the mother who abandoned them without looking back. The 4K high-definition security cameras at San Francisco International Airport showed them clearly and unequivocally boarding passionately and shamelessly together for Miami, in the silent and complicit dawn of Monday, on the 3:15 a.m. AA 930 flight. Him gallantly and solicitously carrying her fake Louis Vuitton bags like a passionate and devoted medieval knight, her possessively and vulgarly hanging on his arm like a gleaming golden trophy conquered after a long hunt, both smiling radiantly, carefree and guiltless, as if they had just won the 300 million accumulated Powerball. Which, in a certain macabre, distorted, ironic, and cruel way, they had indeed objectively won, with my hard-earned, saved, and sacrificed money fully and generously financing their romantic, criminal, immoral, and cowardly escape to the American tropical paradise of Miami Beach. Clara, my dear, we need to act immediately with maximum urgency and surgical precision. This clearly and unequivocally constitutes qualified fraud due to the amount and premeditation, aggravated embezzlement due to the trust relationship, conspiracy due to Vanessa's participation, and even possible international money laundering if they moved funds abroad. We can request immediate preventive arrest and summarily apprehend them with an international warrant as soon as they step on American soil again, plus asset freezing and repatriation of funds. Marco said with the controlled, grave, and metallic professional voice he used in important district court tribunals. But his dark brown eyes, identical to mine, inherited from our northeastern mother, clearly and unequivocally revealed the volcanic and primitive fraternal fury barely contained of someone seeing his adored and protected older sister since childhood, being cruelly psychologically destroyed by a narcissistic, sociopathic, manipulative con artist without scruples or moral conscience. His fists were clenched with such Herculean force and accumulated tension that his knuckles turned white as exposed corpse bones, blue veins bulging and pulsing in his neck like guitar strings about to snap, jaw-locked, grinding teeth, and I knew perfectly and undoubtedly that if Raphael were physically present in front of us at that tense moment of devastating revelation, Marcos would completely and instantly forget his prestigious and expensive legal education from Harvard Law School, his 15 years of respectable legal practice, and resort to primitive, visceral, and brutal physical violence that Raphael certainly and deservedly deserved with interest and monetary correction. But I was in too deep, paralyzing, and dissociative shock to even think about elaborate, immediate revenge, exemplary criminal justice, or divine retribution. The devastating and unforgivable double betrayal, financial and romantic simultaneously like 2 stabs in the same blow, had broken me into microscopic, unrecognizable pieces apparently impossible to reconstruct, reassemble, or glue back together. I spent the first 2 hellish, endless, and nebulous weeks after the devastating blow in a practically catatonic, vegetative, and dissociated state on the brown leather couch in the living room that still held the shape of his body, precariously and mechanically surviving on cheap, greasy, and tasteless Chinese food delivery, generously paid without questions by worried Marcos and maternal Helena, my unconditional and loyal best friend since the golden days of computer science college at Berkeley, who took daily 12-hour shifts like dedicated nurses to ensure I ate at least one complete meal a day with proteins and vitamins, occasionally showered to maintain minimum human hygiene and dignity, and didn't do anything irreversible in a moment of despair. The apartment that was once our cozy nest of true love, home of our dreams and strategic nervous center of business operations, instantly and irreversibly became a silent, oppressive, and ghostly mausoleum of dead, buried, and rotting dreams. Every corner, furniture, and object painfully and cruelly reminding me of moments that now seemed like elaborate, cruel, and sadistic lies. Raphael emotionally proposing with tears in his eyes at the romantic 3-year anniversary dinner, with a modest but meaningful white gold engagement ring full of promises we chose together after visiting 15 jewelry stores. The two of us animatedly and hopefully painting the office wall sky blue hope on a sunny Saturday because he was convinced and superstitious it was the feng shui color of prosperity, abundance, and business success. The endless, productive, and adrenaline-filled early mornings meticulously developing every detail of the revolutionary 200-page business plan that would be our disruptive revolution in the conservative and antiquated American financial market, the cheerful, hopeful, and naive toasts with cheap domestic wine from a jug noisily celebrating every small incremental victory, every milestone reached in the endless development of our shared dream project. But then, on a gray, rainy, melancholic, and introspective April morning with that fine and persistent drizzle typical of San Francisco that seems to wash the soul, while mechanically and reluctantly drinking the watery, bitter, and tasteless instant coffee that was absolutely all my churning, revolted, and on-strike stomach could tolerate without returning, something changed fundamentally. Chemically and irreversibly inside me like a rusty and forgotten key turning with difficulty and creaking in a lock, jammed for decades of abandonment. The lacerating, paralyzing, incapacitating, and self-destructive pain gradually but inevitably transformed into incandescent, purifying, energizing, and productive rage like volcanic lava that destroys but fertilizes. The devastating, melancholic, and self-destructive sadness, metamorphosed like caterpillar into butterfly into tempered and retempered steel determination, forged in the infernal fire of extreme suffering and unforgivable betrayal. Raphael had taken my hard-earned money saved with blood and sweat, my naive and romantic trust in true love, my meticulously planned immediate future in spreadsheets and graphs, but he hadn't managed to take my deep and specialized knowledge accumulated from 15 years of cutting-edge technology experience and advanced programming, my superhuman and proven ability to work 20 consecutive hours a day when truly motivated by rage and thirst for revenge, my extensive and loyal network of strategic professional contacts, methodically and patiently built over years of conferences and networking. My privileged, creative, and innovative brain that had completely alone architected the entire revolutionary and patentable technological structure of the FinTech that he erroneously, arrogantly, and naively thought also belonged to him by divine masculine right. If he naively, stupidly, and cruelly thought, leaving me with miserable and humiliating 67 cents would break me permanently, definitively, and irreversibly, he had drastically, fatally, and unforgivably underestimated who I truly was beneath the socially constructed mask of submissive, devoted fiancé, blind, passionate woman, and silent minority partner who never questioned, confronted, or challenged his superior masculine decisions. Helena was absolutely fundamental, instrumental, and vital in this painful but necessary and transformative process of professional and personal rebirth from the smoking ashes of destruction. Arriving on a rainy and melancholic Saturday afternoon with her latest generation MacBook Pro that cost $15,000, a bottle of excellent and expensive Argentine Malbec red wine Special Reserve 2018 vintage she saved for special occasions, imported Belgian chocolates to raise serotonin, and unwavering, contagious and motivating determination to definitively rescue me from the deep, dark, and sucking emotional black hole where I was sinking quickly and dangerously without strength to swim back. Clara, my dear, listen to me very carefully now because this is extremely important and could change everything. You developed completely alone, without anyone's help, the entire complex, innovative, and revolutionary architecture of the blockchain system you intended to use. The 50,000-line source code is entirely and legally yours. The unquestionable and protected intellectual property is yours. The strategic patents for 3 revolutionary algorithms are registered in your individual name at the USPTO. because you had the vision and intelligence to preventively register everything before even having the company. Raphael was merely and simply the superficial and replaceable commercial and financial part that honestly anyone with a mediocre MBA from a community college could easily do with a YouTube course. You possess the deep, specialized, and rare technical knowledge that's literally worth pure gold in today's technology market hungry for innovation. Let's rebuild absolutely everything from scratch, but this time it will be exclusively and uniquely yours, without opportunistic parasites, emotional leeches vampirically sucking your exceptional talent, unique creativity, and hard-earned money as if they belonged to them by right. With the last 500 surviving and solitary dollars, I miraculously and providentially had in an old and forgotten individual Bank of America account that Raphael completely didn't know existed because it predated our relationship and I had never mentioned it. Plus, $3,000 generously and fraternally loaned by Marcos with symbolic brotherly interest, genuinely concerned about my well-being and future. And $5,000 from Helena that she vehemently, categorically, and repeatedly insisted was strategic angel investment and not charitable loan because she genuinely, deeply, and unwaveringly believed in my unexplored potential and future return. I laboriously, methodically, and obsessively began rebuilding my professional and personal life simultaneously from the smoking and radioactive ruins. I reluctantly but necessarily moved to a tiny, claustrophobic, and poorly ventilated 400-square-foot apartment in a peripheral but relatively safe and accessible area of Oakland, where the modest and negotiable rent cost only $1,200 monthly instead of the exorbitant and absurd $8,000 of the luxurious and ostentatious apartment in Pacific Heights that was pure status. I creatively and functionally transformed the cramped 200-square-foot living room into an improvised but functional office during the day, with a folding table and plastic chair, and Spartan but sufficient bedroom at night with a mattress on the floor, working obsessively, compulsively, and tirelessly, 18 consecutive hours a day in the feverish development of the revolutionary system I had originally idealized in moments of inspiration, but now with substantial improvements, radical innovations, and disruptive functionalities I had conceived during the long, sleepless nights of productive, creative, and transformative rage, fueled by gallons of strong black coffee and pure determination to prove my worth. I discovered surprised, amazed, and empowered that extreme adversity, absolute desperation, and urgent need for survival had unlocked an extraordinary, superhuman, and unexplored level of latent creativity and iron determination. I honestly and humbly didn't know I possessed dormant and asleep within me waiting for the right moment to awaken. Without Raphael constantly condescendingly criticizing, mansplaining, and sabotaging my innovative ideas as too ambitious for underdeveloped America, technically unfeasible for the conservative and backward American market, or woman's thing who doesn't understand real business, I was finally, completely and absolutely free to radically innovate without psychological ties, artificial limitations, or masculine censorship. I feverishly and inspiredly developed a revolutionary, innovative, and patentable quantum security algorithm for blockchain transactions that dramatically and provably reduced processing time by 70%, while rigorously and paranoically maintaining the same military and governmental levels of AES-256 encryption. I obsessively and perfectionistically created an intuitive, elegant, and minimalist interface that even my technophobic and averse 68-year-old mother could use naturally and intuitively, without complex tutorials, confusing manuals, or specialized training. I brilliantly and innovatively implemented a sophisticated and revolutionary system of self-executing smart contracts that completely and definitively eliminated parasitic intermediaries, opportunistic middlemen, and reduced operational costs by 80% proven. Every line of code meticulously written in Python, JavaScript, and Solidity was motivated and energized by rage, transmuted and sublimated into pure and concentrated creative fuel. Every function implemented and tested was a small but significant and symbolic revenge against who had underestimated, belittled, and discarded me so deeply, cruelly, and unforgivably. 3 intense months after the initial devastating blow that almost destroyed me, with the MVP, minimum viable product, working perfectly, elegantly, and without critical failures in a controlled environment of rigorous testing and extreme stress tests, I strategically and calculatingly scheduled a decisive meeting with the legendary, mythical, and respected Mr. Silvera, a mythical, visionary and billionaire angel investor in the vibrant and competitive ecosystem of American startups, internationally known and revered for his visionary, accurate, and multiplying investments in fintechs that today are worth billions of dollars globally. Helena had gotten the exclusive, coveted, and closely guarded contact through an MBA colleague at Stanford who owed favors. And I had exactly and precisely 15 minutes timed on his Swiss watch to definitively and unequivocally convince him that my disruptive and revolutionary solution was worth his precious magnate time and abundant but discerning money. I obsessively and meticulously prepared an absolutely impeccable, memorable, and unforgettable presentation, obsessively and exhaustively rehearsed hundreds of times in the tiny bathroom mirror until every word sounded natural but impactful. Every gesture seemed spontaneous but significant. Wore my only Zara women's executive suit that had survived the asset liquidation and needed urgent tailoring, because I had dramatically and worryingly lost 25 pounds from pure emotional stress, chronic anxiety, and poor nutrition based on ramen, saltine crackers, and black coffee. The decisive and transformative meeting in his modernist, imposing, and intimidating office in the financial and pulsing heart of downtown San Francisco, with breathtaking and cinematic 360-degree panoramic views of the city stretching to the horizon and original artworks by Basquiat, Warhol, and Koons that individually were worth more than entire apartments in the area, was a definitive, historic, and transformative watershed that would change my trajectory forever. Mr. Silvera, with his 62 years of accumulated experience and wisdom in identifying potential unicorns and future billion-dollar companies before all other investors, immediately, clearly, and unequivocally saw the revolutionary disruptive value and exponential potential of the technology presented with passion and conviction. Miss Clara, this is definitely and unequivocally not just another generic and copied fintech. It's a complete paradigmatic and disruptive revolution in how we process financial transactions in America, and potentially the entire world. How many other important investors and competitors have already approached you with proposals and offers? When I honestly and transparently answered that he was the first and only one, because I had literally and obsessively just finished the complete development the night before at 3 a.m. after 72 hours without sleep, his calculating, experienced and penetrating gray eyes shone with the uncontained and poorly disguised satisfaction of someone finding a 100-carat rough diamond before the gold rush begins and competition arrives. I left that transformative and historic meeting with a signed and stamped check for $2 million of initial seed investment to begin operations, generous and optimistic valuation of $10 million for the company that, ironically and bureaucratically, didn't even have an EIN constituted with the Secretary of State yet, and Mr. Silvera as experienced mentor, strategic advisor, and influential board member with 20% participation. But infinitely, immeasurably, and emotionally more important than the cold money itself, I left that mirrored building with definitive, irrefutable, and unquestionable validation that I didn't need, never needed, and would never need Raphael or any condescending, sexist, and limited man to achieve my ambitious and visionary professional dreams. The copious, salty, and liberating tears I shed alone and relieved in the high-speed panoramic elevator descending from the 30th floor weren't of sadness, self-pity, or nostalgia, but of deep relief, genuine pride, and definitive liberation for having definitively and irrefutably proven to myself and the world that I was infinitely, incomparably, and absolutely much more than the betrayed, robbed, and humiliated fiancé the superficial world prejudicially saw me as being. With the substantial, transformative, and liberating investment, I strategically and judiciously assembled a small but highly qualified, motivated, and committed team. 2 genius prodigy developers freshly graduated with honors and distinction from MIT, who worked passionately for generous equity of 5% each and minimum survival salary, because they passionately and genuinely believed in the revolutionary vision and potential for worldwide change. A talented, creative, and perfectionist UX/UI designer who had worked at Stripe, Square, and PayPal and wanted a bigger, more significant challenge with more purpose, a specialized and certified lawyer in fintechs, compliance, and banking regulation, who meticulously and preventively structured the entire complex and bureaucratic regulatory part with the Federal Reserve, SEC, and IRS. We rented a functional but inspiring 1,000-square-foot office in a vibrant and energetic accelerator in Palo Alto. Nothing luxurious or ostentatious, but functional, Practical and with the contagious and motivating energy of dozens of other startups heroically fighting to change the world and leave their legacy. The strategic, symbolic, and significant company name? Phoenix Fin, because like the immortal mythological phoenix of ancient legends, I had risen from the ashes of total destruction stronger, wiser, more resilient and powerful than I ever imagined or dreamed possible in my most optimistic moments. The following 6 months were an intense, exhausting, and transformative emotional roller coaster of insane, obsessive, and tireless work that would make any Silicon Valley workaholic addict look lazy and complacent in comparison. We strategically and carefully launched the beta version to 1,000 carefully selected, qualified, and engaged users, and the feedback was extraordinarily, surprisingly, and unanimously positive. 98% total satisfaction and spontaneous recommendation. Average transaction time of 3 seconds with instant confirmation. 0 critical security failures in the most aggressive, sophisticated, and destructive penetration tests conducted by professional and internationally certified ethical hackers. Large century-old traditional banks began discreetly and nervously approaching us for mutually beneficial strategic partnerships, with palpable, visible, and justified fear of irreversibly losing market share to our truly disruptive and revolutionary technology. Specialized national and international media began calling us the Stripe of blockchain, the fintech that will definitely retire traditional Jurassic banks, and the inevitable future of financial transactions. Every incremental but significant achievement was a solid, resistant, and permanent brick in the wall of my personal, professional, and emotional reconstruction. Every milestone reached and surpassed was irrefutable, incontestable, and definitive proof that Raphael had ignorantly, stupidly, and arrogantly discarded a diamond of inestimable value and infinite potential thinking it was mere common and disposable coal. It was on a sunny, golden, and hopeful September morning with crystal blue sky, exactly 6 months and 3 days after the initial devastating blow that changed my life, while I meticulously and obsessively prepared the crucial and decisive presentation for the Series A round of $50 million with first-tier international investors from Silicon Valley, Singapore, and London, that Helena ran in breathless and agitated into my office, with her face red from pure and uncontained excitement and her phone visibly trembling in her sweaty hand. "Clara, you definitely and absolutely won't believe what I'm about to tell you now. The miserable and despicable son of a bitch is back in America with his tail between his legs like a beaten dog. And there's more, much more. He's desperately and pathetically looking for work everywhere because apparently Vanessa treacherously ran off with another 70-year-old millionaire in Miami, taking absolutely and cruelly all the rest of the money they stole from you. Raphael is completely, totally, and irreversibly broke, owing astronomical fortunes at the 5-star hotel where he stayed, international credit card maxed out and blocked, name blacklisted on Equifax, Experian, TransUnion, and every credit protection agency imaginable and unimaginable. Instant, divine, and perfect karma with interest and correction. The bombshell information hit me like a precise and accurate punch to the solar plexus, but surprisingly and revealingly not in the way I expected, imagined, or fantasized during nights of rage. Instead of sadistic, vindictive satisfaction and sick or morbid and cruel joy at deserved misfortune, I felt only a strange, disconcerting, and anticlimactic emptiness, as if Raphael were a fictional and two-dimensional character from a mediocre and forgettable book I had read long ago in a past life and could barely remember the basic plot or details. In just 6 intense and transformative months, I had transformed so completely, fundamentally and irreversibly, that the man who had tried to destroy me psychologically and financially seemed to belong to another life, another dimension, another Clara who simply didn't exist anymore in this current reality. But then Helena continued excitedly and breathlessly with the part that would absolutely and ironically change everything. "And you know where he's pathetically and desperately trying to get a job at any level? At Quantum Bank, that problematic and poorly managed fintech we just strategically and secretly bought last week for $3 million through the holding company. He obviously and predictably doesn't know you're the absolute majority owner, because we did the entire acquisition through the secret offshore Delaware holding with layers of protection. Quantum Bank had been our first calculated and planned strategic acquisition, a smaller fintech with a good base of 50,000 captive and loyal customers, but terrible, incompetent, and outdated management that we bought for $3 million to aggressively and rapidly expand our national operation and market presence. I had kept the entire efficient operational structure and competent employees, only surgically and ruthlessly replacing the incompetent and corrupt board. And now, by delicious, poetic, and too perfect cosmic irony to be mere random coincidence, Raphael had desperately and humbly applied for a mediocre senior manager position, exactly the same mediocre and limited position he had before completely destroying my life. The universe apparently had a refined, sadistic black sense of humor, and was definitely and unequivocally on my side this time as compensation for the suffering. Strategically and purposefully, schedule his final interview for Monday at 9 o'clock sharp in my main office. But don't say absolutely and categorically anything about who the CEO is who's going to personally and sadistically conduct it. I want to see, savor, and eternalize the expression of absolute shock, horror, and despair on his face when he walks into my office and finally recognizes me. I told Helena, who smiled maliciously and complicitly like a cat that just caught the fat and juicy canary after a long hunt. During the 3 endless and anxious days until the interview, I prepared psychologically and emotionally like a gladiator before entering the mortal arena of the Colosseum. I bought a black women's Armani suit for $15,000 that I could now easily afford to pay cash without even blinking or checking the balance, cut and dyed my hair platinum at an exclusive and trendy salon where just the cut cost $800 and the complete transformation $3,000, did my nails in blood red purposefully symbolic and significant of the approaching revenge inexorably. Monday dawned with perfect, crystalline, and cinematic blue sky without a single cloud, as if the universe wanted perfect and dramatic Hollywood lighting for the epic and historic moment approaching. My CEO office on the 23rd floor of San Francisco's most modern corporate building had breathtaking 360-degree panoramic views of the city stretching infinitely to the horizon. Minimalist but luxurious and imposing decoration with contemporary Italian design furniture that cost a fortune. Original paintings by emerging American artists I always wanted, but Raphael said was pretentious and snobby waste of money that could be better invested. I was sitting majestically and imperially in the Italian genuine leather president's chair that cost $20,000, purposefully and casually reviewing complex and profitable financial reports on my latest generation MacBook Pro with Retina display, when they knocked timidly and hesitantly on the mahogany door at 9 o'clock precise like a Swiss watch. "Come in," I said with a perfectly neutral and controlled professional voice I had exhaustively practiced in the mirror to not betray absolutely any anticipated emotion or anxiety. The solid mahogany door opened slowly, and Raphael entered hesitant and insecure in his best suit, which I instantly and painfully recognized as the navy blue Hugo Boss we had bought in 12 installments on the card 2 years ago, with interest for him to impress at the crucial meeting with investors that never materialized, because he fled before. He was visibly thinner and worn, with deep and dark circles under his eyes like bottomless pits, hair with many more premature gray strands from stress, deep wrinkles marking his forehead and around his eyes, and that arrogant, irritating, and characteristic confidence he always carried like armor had completely and definitively disappeared, replaced by poorly disguised desperation of forced and artificial professionalism. The exact, precise, and cinematic moment when he finally recognized me transformed was absolutely unforgettable, and worth every second of suffering, every tear shed, every sleepless night of the last 6 hellish months. His green eyes widened in absolute shock, horror, and disbelief, pupils dilating as if he'd seen a ghost from the past. The worn and stained leather folder he was carrying fell on the imported Carrara marble floor, with a dull, dry, and definitive thud that echoed through the room. His legs literally wobbled and trembled, like jelly melting in the sun, and he had to desperately and pathetically lean on the bronze door handle to not completely collapse on the floor. His mouth opened and closed repeatedly and comically, like an agonizing and suffocating fish out of water, before managing to pathetically and incoherently stammer with a strangled voice. "Clara, you? How is this humanly possible? This can't be real. It must be a nightmare or hallucination. You were completely broke and destroyed. I left you with absolutely nothing but crumbs. You were just an unemployed and desperate programmer with no prospects or future." I let the oppressive, heavy, and dense silence sadistically and calculatingly extend for long, endless, and torturous 15 seconds that seemed like eternal hours, deliberately and maliciously savoring every microsecond of his growing discomfort, palpable panic and sweat dripping down his forehead, before responding with rehearsed professional calm, icy and cutting like a razor. Mr. Rafael Augusto Pereira, please compose yourself, control yourself, and sit down like a professional. We have a formal and official job interview to conduct professionally within corporate protocols. I see here in your updated and inflated resume that you have 15 years of experience in conservative traditional banking management and an MBA in digital finance from Stanford that cost a fortune. Impressive on paper and PowerPoint. Now tell me in detail and honestly about your last significant and relevant professional experience, and more importantly and crucially, clearly and convincingly explain why you left your last stable and well-paid job at the bank. He sank heavily into the leather chair like a punctured balloon rapidly losing air, his face chaotically transitioning through all possible colors of the human emotional rainbow. Cadaverous white from traumatic shock, tomato red from deep shame and humiliation, nauseous green from physical malaise, eggplant purple from contained and impotent rage against fate. Clara, please. I beg on my knees. I can explain absolutely everything that happened. Vanessa deliberately and calculatingly seduced me, psychologically manipulated me like a puppet, convinced me that you were holding me back professionally and personally, that I deserved much more from life, that I was a misunderstood genius and you were just a mediocre programmer. It was a terrible, unforgivable, and catastrophic mistake, the biggest and most destructive mistake of my entire 45 years of life. She ran off with absolutely all the remaining money of the $75,000 in Miami, left me completely abandoned and helpless in a 5-star hotel without documents, without money, without cards, with nothing but the clothes on my back. I had to humbly and shamefully ask the American consulate for borrowed money and do a humiliating online crowdfunding to get back to America. I'm living as a favor in the moldy maid's room of my 70-year-old mother's house with Alzheimer's. My name is blacklisted at all national and international credit protection agencies with $40,000 in debt. Please, Clara, I desperately and urgently need this job to survive. I'll literally do anything you tell me, accept any salary no matter how small and humiliating, work Monday to Sunday, 24 hours a day if necessary, clean bathrooms, make coffee, whatever you want. I slowly, theatrically, and sadistically opened the executive desk drawer and pulled out 2 folders, one blood red like my nails and one corporate royal blue. What an interesting, convenient, and victimizing narrative, Mr. Pereira. Innocent and naive victim of cruel circumstances, cruelly manipulated by an evil, calculating, and seductive woman. Absolutely fascinating and creative how the story dramatically and conveniently changes depending on who tells it, when they tell it, and to whom, isn't it? I have 2 mutually exclusive and definitive options here for you to choose now. I opened the red folder first, and dramatically. Option number 1. You sign immediately and without question this detailed, complete, and thorough confession of qualified embezzlement due to amount and trust relationship, fraud through deception, conspiracy with Vanessa, and international money laundering. My brother Marcos, whom you must remember very well from family meetings, is now a specialized and influential criminal prosecutor and will personally and professionally ensure you get 3 to 5 years in prison initially in maximum security in San Quentin, given the substantial amount involved and proven premeditation. $75,000 is still considered a very significant and serious amount for the American justice system, and you know that. His hands were shaking violently and visibly as if he had advanced Parkinson's while I slowly and dramatically opened the blue folder. Option number 2. You humbly and gratefully accept working for Phoenix Fin, but definitely and categorically not as a respected manager. As a beginner, junior assistant, and subordinate in the debt collection and credit recovery department. Literally and officially the lowest, most humiliating, and despised position we have in the entire corporate hierarchy. Federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour plus ridiculous commission of 0.5% if you hit impossible targets, from 8 in the morning to 8 at night. Monday to Saturday without exceptions. You'll call angry debtors all day until your throat hurts. Hear creative cursing and elaborate insults. Be constantly and repeatedly humiliated by indebted and desperate people. Exactly the type of degrading and humiliating work you always said with disdain and disgust was too undignified for someone with an MBA and your golden experience. Oh, and there's one more surprise. Your direct, immediate, and ruthless supervisor will be John Peter Silva, that 22-year-old intern you publicly, cruelly, and unnecessarily humiliated at your last job at the bank, saying in front of all colleagues that he would never be anyone in life and should immediately give up his banking career and go sell water at traffic lights. Ironically delicious and poetic, he's now our senior collection manager with a monthly salary of $20,000 net plus generous benefits, company car, and profit sharing. Raphael looked at me stunned, incredulous, and defeated, as if I had transformed into a completely different, unrecognizable, and alien person, which in fact objectively and fundamentally I had become. The submissive, understanding, empathetic, maternal, Clara, always willing to unconditionally forgive any offense, had died definitively, permanently, and irreversibly, the day he cowardly fled with our hard-earned money. In her place rose from the ashes a ruthless, calculating, strategic, and determined CEO who transformed miserable and humiliating 67 cents into a multi-million-dollar 50 million company through hard work, intelligence, and determination. You have exactly and precisely 60 seconds timed on my Rolex to decide your future and destiny. 59, 58, 57, 56. I accept the job. Please, Clara, I accept anything, any condition, no matter how humiliating. I can't go to jail. It would literally kill my elderly mother who has a serious heart condition and depends on me. I accept being a humiliated junior assistant. I accept the degrading minimum wage. I accept working Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays if necessary. Please, I beg, with what's left of my dignity. Tears were flowing copiously and pathetically down his face, completely and irreversibly destroying any microscopic residual remnant of the image of the confident, controlling, dominating, and sexist man who had psychologically subjugated me for 5 long years of manipulation. I took the employment contract already meticulously and sadistically prepared by our specialized labor lawyers, with all the humiliating, degrading clauses at the limit of legality that my lawyers guaranteed were perfectly legal, but at the extreme and creative limit of what's ethically acceptable by labor law. Sign here, here, and here with blue pen. Initial all 20 pages. You start tomorrow. If you enjoyed this story, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions about this story in the comments. To hear the next story, click on the box to the left. Thank you for watching.